And you know what? As far as hooking that up to the bank account, how come you're not hooking it up to PayPal?
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Because I would say, wouldn't that be easier? And then you could identify each person.
Yep. Okay, we're going live in 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to Lisa's Changing Perceptions. Lisa is the creator of Changing Perceptions. Through life experience, she has discovered that we all suffer internal wounds that guide us. We live in a society that puts a label and expectation on everything and everyone. So many are in constant battle with themselves, never winning the war or ever feeling good enough. Lisa's Changing Perceptions is a show that offers tools and guidance that will assist you in discovering you and unlocking the chains of pain that bind you. You can reach Lisa at www.lisaschangingperceptions.com. You can email her at lisaschangingperceptions@gmail.com. Give her a call at 262-573-7055. Of course, Lisa's Changing Perceptions brought to you through the financial support of our friends over at Natural Therapy Wellness Center. Check them out at www.mchenrymassage.com or 815-385-8190. Today, areas of mental health with our good friend Dr. K.
So we'll let you introduce yourself better than I did. That's what I call you. Good morning. I'm Lisa with Lisa's Changing Perceptions. I'm a self-empowerment coach, diplomaed hypnotherapist, and double certified NLP practitioner. We come here every week to hopefully offer you some guidance or some inspiration. Today I'll let him introduce himself in just a moment. I call him Dr. K. I've called him K for forever, and give you his background. And he's here to share some insight from a very professional, high-ranking level, and he can tell you what his experience is. 40 plus years, if I remember correctly. So he's going to be here with us today. Real quick, as far as the downloads go, we had some technical glitches. Maybe next.
No, we're still hoping that it's going to go live tomorrow on St. Valentine's Day.
Okay, perfect.
It's a very loving day to put those out there.
Very good, Juju. I don't even know if you know that we're producing professional downloads for people who want to do at-home self-hypnosis for relaxation and for be able to kind of go inward and detach emotionally a little bit so they can see things clearer without reacting. So we're doing some.
That sounds great.
Home self-help guidance.
Yeah.
So Dr. K, since I call you Dr. K and I am blessed to also call you friend, introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Kazubal. Strange name, just a regular old ethnic guy from Chicago. Don't know why I'm a clinical psychologist, but I've been drawn to it from day one. Started in high school, took my first Psychology 101 class, and didn't quit until I got my doctorate, which is required in the state of Illinois to have that to be considered a licensed clinical psychologist. And I proudly wear that title, though I'm not always very proud of it because we've done very little as a profession to reach out and to make this easy for people to access what we have to offer. And talk to anybody that's been in this field, and they will tell you everybody at some time in their life would benefit from therapy. Therapy is a scary word, but it really shouldn't be because it's just help. And sometimes we all need help. But we've done a good job of intimidating people out of that idea. Lisa does just the opposite. She's very welcoming and her door is open and, hey, come in and talk to me. I kind of tried that same approach. I don't promise answers. I promise help. I have to listen before I can talk because you know way the hell more about you than I do. And if you think I've got all the answers to your problems on the first session, but I have a very, very high return rate.
I call that magic thumb syndrome, where they think that you're going to go
Oh yeah,
Right.
you
We were here for an hour. You're all better. Those
Healed.
40 years of crap you carried,
Yeah.
we're good.
Hallelujah.
I tell everybody I'd be
Oh.
richer than Oprah if I had that ability because they'd be lining up.
I used to say exactly the same thing, and this perception is that we've got a magic wand in the drawer.
Right.
You know, why don't you take the magic wand out and use it on me, Doc? I spent a lot of years in prison, but I went home at
Oh,
night.
well,
Yeah, that's
You spent a lot of your treating people in prison.
Yeah, well,
Let's
yeah,
just
no,
correct
I
that
was
for the
going to
air.
correct it. No,
Dr. Dan did not spend a lot of years in prison. Let's just clear that up.
he has.
I went home every night,
Right,
no
there
matter
you
how much snow there was, no matter how many problems there were. I went home and slept in my own bed.
He was allowed to.
That's right.
Yes,
Clear that up.
and
He was not
I
imprisoned.
didn't wear a leg ankle bracelet or anything. I was free to go home and do as I please. But understanding that those people are just like everybody else, and they're looking for an answer for their problems, and don't have a damn clue. All they know is they're in some crappy place that they don't want to be, and they don't know how to necessarily get out, but they also don't know how to get out of their own heads. And the guys that are willing to come talk to somebody that can help them completely voluntary. I used to say, hey, you can come and talk to me for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, for an hour. If this is legit, come back tomorrow. We'll talk and you'll feel better. And if you want to give this a try, and you'd be surprised how many would actually do that. Now, people in the free community are mostly less likely. I think one of the best groups that I always enjoyed working with were the guys that got sent in by a partner or a girlfriend or a wife that who told them, hey, we've got intimacy problems. The first thing they would do when they sat down in the chair across from me, and we always sat at a chair, not at a desk. That's not a conducive atmosphere. But
It's all right. I do it because I draw and everything. I draw pictures out for everybody.
But it adds to the intimidation. But one of the things that the guys would say is, I don't know why she's saying this, because sex is great. And my opening gambit is to tell them that sex and intimacy are not one and the same. And that if you become more intimate, the sex is even going to get better. And they're back. I'm coming next. I'm coming next week.
Let's give an
I'll be
incentive.
here, Doc.
That's called incentive
That's right.
planting.
Yes.
Seed planting for incentive. Now,
you'll make her happy. You'll make you happy.
She'll make you happy
and
back.
She'll
right.
make you happy. I like that approach.
One of the questions when you talked about being in the correctional facility, and I have this debate with people, with the exception of a few, and I truly mean a few, I believe that the core and essence of people is good, but that there's many people who haven't been exposed to the opposition to poor choices, haven't been exposed to the experience to know if this is how I grew up, how is this a poor choice if this is how they lived, and they don't have the experience, to go out and have examples of good choices, and the stigma behind the correctional facility, addiction clinics, these things, and the stigma. And my big beef, and even, I have an issue with the titles of things all the time, which I know a lot of it is for insurance purposes. I get it, but
diagnosis,
and giving people, well, you are,
right.
No, you aren't. You're struggling with. But there's a difference between telling somebody you are, because to me that tells them as a human being, you are this.
And you got something major wrong with you.
Right. And instead it's, no, you're struggling, and you're struggling with something that has been categorized like this. And the categorization of this helps me to determine and put it into where it's more acceptable or you can comprehend it. But it doesn't mean you are this. You're a person, you're a spirit, you're a heart.
And the fear most people have of therapy is that they're not going to be treated as a person when they walk through that door. And there are a lot of people in my profession who do that to people, and who kind of follow the cookbook method of, well, this is the diagnosis and this is what it is that we do for those people.
Right, XYZ tape. It's like a flow chart.
Yeah.
It's like, but that's not everybody's experience wasn't the same. So although you can kind of categorize it to help yourself figure out where you're at, but each person's experience, trigger, and reason for it is going to be a little bit different. And that's part of the stigma and the judgment, is people just say, well, you have this, so you must be like this. Like I've had the argument with people, because that I've read about addiction and I study addiction a lot. And I said, well, they're an addict, so they are manipulative. They are this, they are that. I'm like, no, the addiction may have caused them to develop these personality traits because it protected them during the addiction. But they, as a human being, were not born manipulative or lying. You know what I mean? These are things that they developed, but it was out of a self-saving. It was out of a self-protection, right? Survival mode.
Those things worked for them, and they had nothing else to
go
fall back on.
Right.
And when they try something else and it works as well, if not better, and you don't have to go to prison because of that.
Right. Right. But how many people aren't exposed to it? I guess that was where I was going with the correctional facility, is that as you talk to the people, and I'm sure that there were some that used it as their hour to get some free time, not everybody was in it for wholeheartedly, but I'm sure the majority of them were. And how many of them did you find just really hadn't had the experience where somebody allowed them to be who they were and to feel like they wanted to change, but didn't judge them that that was the essence of who they were?
They weren't feeling like they were being treated like a real person, nor were they feeling like they were talking to a real person. We look for a connection, and you can't, I say this all the time, those papers on the wall don't mean anything, but what means something is when I say to you, I can help you, and this is going to make things better. And I would say 80% of the people that I've worked with over 40 years of incarcerated, non-incarcerated, in all kinds of settings in my own private practice for a very long time, usually leave that first session and say, Doc, I feel so much better already. I'm so glad I came. And most of the time, they would tell you the story about how long they waited and how many times they picked up the phone and set it back down, and because they just didn't know what to expect. The media has done one hell of a poor job with depicting therapy people.
Oh.
We look like idiots. We look like charlatans. We look like people that are self-serving and that want to look like big deals in front of the world. And people come in thinking, how is this person going to help me? This person doesn't even like me. They're looking down their nose at me.
My personal experience, that I've had struggles with different counselors over the years, whether it be for myself, for my daughter, for people I care about. I call it textbook psychology. And it's people who I've found didn't really have the experiences in life that humbled a little bit to allow that rapport building. Or they had so much of that experience in life that they were afraid to step into that. So they stayed within I call it, like I said, textbook psychology, where it is the flow chart. We're going to do X, Y, Z. And you allowed them to have a rapport with you, and you allowed them to say, I'm a person and this is my struggle. And you didn't look at them as a prisoner. You just looked at them as a person who was struggling and needed somebody to talk about. That's a rapport building.
And they would very much appreciate me sharing just a little bit about my life. Telling them, hey, you can do this too. There are things here that you're capable. I see it. I know it. That if you do this stuff differently, your life doesn't have to look like you think it's going to go,
right,
or that you're doomed to follow this course down, this path down into the world. Just having somebody give a damn. And
genuinely care.
Oh yeah, and
there's a difference. People can know the difference too.
and people who have been hurt by that over and over and over again are exquisitely sensitive to being people that are not genuine. If you're just in here, they'll tell you you're just in here collecting a paycheck, and I say, hey, I can do this, and I can make way more money doing this somewhere else. And I'm here because I want to help you. I truly want to help
Right.
you.
Something about this situation and you and what have you resonates to my heart. It has nothing to do with, because private practice is a little more financially gratifying, I'm sure, than the correctional facility.
Absolutely. But there's so many people that come into a private practice and they've had similar experiences to these inmates. These people that the last, I can't tell you how many people have said to me, if you started this session like the last person I saw, I probably would have punched you in the nose and been out the door and never came back. This one lady that had been suffering with depression for 40 years, taking antidepressant medication, never went to any kind of talk therapy. I sent her to a specialist in medication. She came back after 3 or 4 weeks. She said, "You've given me my life back." She was driving to my office and home from work every day, contemplating driving off of a bridge to end her
What a
life.
horrible way to live.
And when she came back, and part of it was that she was taking the medication different than what her family practitioner was prescribing for
I have that
40
argument.
years, and said, when you take this, you're going to have to take it for the rest of your life. That's not true. That's not an approach that works. And at the end of the session, I said to her, "So when are you coming back?" And she looked at me and she said, "In about a year." And I said, "Oh, no. This is a nice bump you got.
Right.
You're feeling better. Things are going, but we've got a lot of stuff to talk about down the road." And as it turned out, one of the stuff that she needed to talk about was something that happened to her as a child. And the opening comment was, "My parents are going to be turning over in their graves, but I got to talk about this."
I get that too, when people come in, and that's an interesting thing, because I find many people stay in the struggle because they have an attachment to, maybe they can't make amends with the parent or whatever. So in other words, they're kind of betraying them. And my response to them is, I said, "I understand where that comes from. And if you feel that way," so I'm just curious, in life, did they want you to suffer and be miserable
for the rest of your life?
And
Yeah.
and in life,
Yeah.
did they wish to be the ones that brought it on? Because now, and I'm a widow, so I can relate to this. I carried much guilt. A lot of my changing of my whole world was when my husband died. My whole life shattered, and I had to restructure everything about it.
And you could have fallen apart.
I did
And
for a little while.
But you
Pulled it
decided you're going to go get some help, and you're going to get
I
better.
had a 13 and 17-year-old girl at home that needed me to, and that helped. But yeah, I was with him from 18 to 44, and my whole life crumbled, and I was about as close to a mental breakdown, literally. Like, there's a couple times I thought, drive yourself to the hospital. You're over it. And I remember I've explained to people, I'm like, no, I decided I was going to live life for everything he taught me. And so I'm honest about things that I did wrong and things I was angry about him about. So, but my belief is, and it's a strong belief in faith, is that he is somewhere now that is at peace, and he wouldn't want to carry the burden of my unhappiness. So my response has been, well, my husband loved me. That's why I do it.
Yeah.
Well, but how can you say that you were angry when he would do this or that? I'm like, because my husband loved me and he wouldn't want me to carry that. And I'm trying to find that link where somebody links their past now and they would want me to be miserable for this or shame them. I'm like, they're free. You know what I mean? They're free. They're free of those things. Allow yourself to be free. Because I know, and I put myself in that position. If it was me who had gone first, I wouldn't want him to suffer the rest of life in mourning. Our human ego says, oh my gosh, they better miss me and they better be miserable without me because that means they love me. That's our human ego. You know what I mean? But in truth, is that really what you wish for somebody you love? And that's the case. Like, people are ashamed to talk about their childhoods or, what happened because maybe they can't make amends with their parents or whatever it is. I've dealt with daddy issues, as you know, as my friend that I've talked about. I don't believe that they're up there saying, please be miserable forever. Please hide our secret.
Probably apologize for the mistakes they made,
right,
which they've now come to realize.
Exactly.
That they were just doing the best they could with what they had to work with.
Exactly. And that's how the forgiveness went through when I went through a forgiveness process with my dad. It was like 14 years ago. It was before he died. And the interesting thing is he never knew I did it. But I stopped and I talked about this in the neighborhood. I detached dad from his name. I detached dad from him as a human being. And I looked at his upbringing and his experiences. And I went, oh, you know what? It's kind of warped some of the things he did that have messed up my head. But in truth, he did the best he could with what he had in the moment. You know, you have a question.
Annie Oakley says, nice way to wake up to y'all. And she's sharing this out on Twitter. So thanks, Annie. Shayna, our good friend, says, managing expectations of others is an ongoing challenge to our peace of mind. I recently was told of the Enneagram Prison Project.
I don't know what that is. You know what that is?
And was wondering if you knew anything of it. Good morning, she says. And she's ENNEAGRAM. Enneagram? I'm not sure.
I don't know what that is. I've never heard of it.
All right. Well, there you go. That was her question, if you knew anything of it. So the answer is no.
There are a lot of initiatives going on in the state of Illinois. When I first went to work in the prison system, there were 750 inmates, and they were all my caseload.
Wow,
that was it. That's expanded greatly, but will there ever be enough? Can we ever afford enough treatment people? And it's not because we're so well paid; it's because the need is so great, and we put a lot of restrictions on who can practice, what level we're at. Help needs to be made much more available. And I fault my profession for the fact that we have not gone out and worked very hard to make this happen. Every once in a while, the thought crosses my mind that I should run for office. And then I walk away from it thinking the craziness.
Good Lord, especially now. That would be where I'd want to go.
Then he goes to therapy.
Yeah, that's right. And
is there a good therapist out there for me if I decide to run for office?
That's right.
So she brought up a good point in managing the expectation of others. So in your 40 years, how often did you find that the majority of our root causes or our struggles in life have to do with us trying to meet the expectation of others?
Yes, because that's what I was told I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And never really got the opportunity. And that's what therapy can be for them,
right,
is to find out what works for me. What makes me happy? What is it that I like to do? And many people are taught never to even think about that. You just do what you have to do. That's a hell of a way to live. That's the royal road to depression. You're going to end up feeling unfulfilled. You're going to end up feeling like you're just not a happy person, and that you can't bring happiness where you go. So you end up being that downer.
And how often do you find that people don't even know what happiness is? That's what I find in the offices.
They don't know.
I'll say, what made you come?
Yeah.
I want to find happiness and peace.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Define that for me.
Right.
Define it for me. Well, you know happiness and peace. Well, I know happiness and peace for me, but I don't know happiness and peace for you. It may be something totally different. Define it. And then, well, you know, that feeling. No, I don't. What feeling? What feeling are you searching for? What are you looking for it to feel like? And people just at that point kind of go, I don't know. Right? It's like the greyhound chasing the rabbit. It's never going to catch. So you're always feeling empty. You need to self-identify what is happiness for me. But many of us can't do that because in doing that, we detach what somebody else wants us to be. And we're locked into, but this person wants us to be this way, or this person has this expectation of us. And then people get stuck in the loop.
And for most people, part of what happiness is all about is freedom to be who they are.
Freedom from not worrying what the hell anybody else thinks.
Right.
There's much peace and happiness
Amen.
in saying, you know what, if you live in integrity, to me, if you live in integrity, you don't cause harm to another human being, be you.
And you respect others for who they are.
For who they are and where they are and at what level they are.
Make them into what you want them to be.
Yes, and there's many of us that struggle with that in the helping fields. You know, I see that you can be this, so therefore I expect you to be it now.
Yeah.
Versus going, you know what? No, let's relate where you're at. And I told you that's one of my more recent discoveries. Let's relate where you're at and just accept where you're at. And then the key to that is knowing yourself. And it's a dangerous road for some people to know yourself well enough to go, don't get trapped there.
Mm-hmm.
You're only there in the moment to relate to somebody, but don't pull yourself there. Be still who you are. Be able to walk away and still be who you are and what you believe in, and finding that fine line. But right now in society, and that's one of my questions for you, with every single thing being offensive and judged, and everybody's wrong and everybody's titled, whether it be racist or, whatever it is. People are out there spinning right now.
Well, people have forgotten the fact that would you go to a surgeon that only read one book about surgery?
Right.
And everybody has in quotes, right to their opinion, but some opinions are a hell of a lot more valuable than others. And everybody will tell you.
And
well, this is what I think.
Some of them lack less life experience, because in truth, in order to really see it all, whether you have, the degrees or not the degrees or whatever, you have to be able to evaluate your own life experience. And if you can't do that, then you're only stuck in your own zone being the own truth. And there's not one truth in this world. We all know
and that question, is this truly working for me?
Right.
Is that, like I said in my self-introduction, I'm supposed to be doing this. I don't have any doubt about that. And it's why I feel blessed by that. And I'm not sure I know where the hell that comes from, but wherever it came from, I got it.
Well, you and I would have a big conversation about that.
Yeah.
It's your calling.
But
your core,
But and then we get off onto the whole issue of religion. How much is supposedly religiously based. And again, a lot of people read one book and that's their guide for their entire lives. And that ain't enough.
And they're following the book versus feeling what they feel about it. Kent has a question.
Yeah.
Shanna says society has real consequences for going against the quote unquote mob or groupthink of the moment. How do you stay true to yourself?
Oh, that you can take that one, Dr. K. I'm throwing you under the bus.
Part of how you stay true to that is that you have to examine that for yourself so that you know that what you're saying is what you're about is in fact what you're about. If you're bouncing around from one extreme to the other or listening to every opinion that comes along, whether it makes sense to you or not, you can't. Everybody will tell you they're an authority. Yeah. They know the answer and they'll tell you how to do it. Look at their life. How's that going for them?
Well, that brings up when I was working the ISS, I love those kids. And one of their rewards, which surprised people how much they enjoyed, one of their rewards was that if whoever turned in the most homework for the day to get caught up on their back work, I gave them the last hour and I bought them a Gatorade and they got to listen to music, but they also got to put an inspirational quote on my board. I had a dry erase board with inspirational quotes. And one of them said, never take advice or never care about the opinion of someone you wouldn't go to for advice. And I said, amazing. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
And it was funny because these kids that, there were higher ups that looked at as, they're just troublemakers. They're just this or that. And I found when you give them structure, you give them expectation. And I don't mean expectation of who they are, but expectation of what you expect from them while they were in that room. I had an expectation of what they would do, but I also gave them reward. And I found they loved it. Like I get to do the inspiration. Oh my gosh. I'm searching.
You knew it meant something to them.
And I found how excited they got. And I thought, these are the kids that you guys are throwing in the cesspool saying that they're not worth it. When in truth, they just want somebody to show them how and then allow them to. That's it. That was all they were really searching for.
Give me a chance. Because I've done it my way and it didn't work.
Right.
So give me
But nobody showed me anything different. They all expected that this is who I was, and it's
Clean
not
up
who
your
they are.
act,
Right.
Straighten up and fly right.
Yeah, because they don't cuss at me. In my room, you better not cut. You do not raise your voice at me. You do not cuss at me. They called me Miss Lisa, which was fine. You do not raise your voice at me. You do not cuss at me. And if you want me to hear you, I'll hear you. But you'll speak to me like I'm respected the way I'm going to respectfully listen to what you listen to. And people, they'll never do that. Absolutely, they would do that. Very seldom did I have the boat rocker. Very, very seldom. They have a question.
Yeah, Annie says, geez, what if you have to cut ties with toxic family to gain peace and protect yourself?
I have my own view on this, but you go ahead.
Well, when you said it all, you have to cut those ties. You come to that, and then you follow your own advice. Mm-hmm. If you keep coming back to the conclusion that it's the right thing to do, then by all means do it. Stick to it. Don't keep waffling and going back and forth. Children need consistency.
Mhm.
Parents don't know how to be consistent. They weren't taught to be consistent by their parents. That's part of what toxicity is all about.
Mhm.
You're confusing the hell out of me. I don't know what you want from me. Or you're telling me this is what I'm supposed to do. And then somehow or other you find a reason to punish me, or you're upset with me. And maybe that's not even the reason why you're upset with me, but it's the excuse you're using to be mad at you because
Or also
you're a
parents
bad
who have
kid.
an expectation of children or demanding of children of things that they don't do for themselves, or they can't, in a behavior that they don't present.
They don't
I
wanna
have a
be
different
the role
opinion that
model.
society has taught us. I get family. I do. I have family, obviously. But my view of family is more than DNA. I don't necessarily believe that DNA makes you family. I think it makes you genetically linked family. But family to me is who supports you when you're, and here's the key, who cheers you on when you're rocking it. You know what I mean? When everything's going great.
Yeah.
And who picks you up when you fell or sits with you when you've fallen. Because true family, true friends, true whatever, segment of that you want to do, true partners, true spouses, whatever, they are in it with you for both sides of it. There's no jealousy to your success, but there's also no judgment to your failure or weakness or whatever word you want to put in. So to me, that's your family. Whether they carry your genes or not isn't relevant. Build your family. Some people are blessed to have a DNA family that is very supportive that way, and others have pieces of their DNA family that are. And then sadly, there's some people that don't have that at all, and they had to literally just leave in order to be better the entire environment and create their own world.
But that's something that has been bred into us.
Absolutely.
That family, because there's DNA, it are the people you can trust. And sometimes your family is the worst people you can trust. And watch.
That's where your mess came from.
That's right. Look at how successful are they being?
Right.
And it's not to judge or to come down on them for that, but to realize it's not working for them. How is it going to work for me if I follow in their shoes? Parents are relying so heavily on the schools because they're clueless as to
what to do.
How to do it better or different. And some of it's so simple, but it's about being systematic. It's being analytical. Look at the behavior. If every time you take something away from this kid and deprive him of that, all it does is make him more angry, and he goes out and does the same damn thing, and you just keep upping the ante. It's not working.
Right.
It's not working. Find something else.
Another question.
Nope. Just wanted to let everybody know you're tuned in to 21.6 The Net. And this is Lisa's Changing Perceptions, brought to you through the net. Let's try that again. Let me rewind that. Brought to you through the financial support of our good friends over at Natural Therapy Wellness Center. If you are stressed and you need a little massage therapy, maybe some reflexology, acupuncture, these folks are fantastic. All licensed massage therapists. Check them out at www.mchenrymassage.com or give them a call at 815-385-8190 to maybe change your perception on, relaxing.
Maybe I'll visit them so my lower back has been
There you go.
giving me issues. Yeah. I love a good massage.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say with my professional producer degree is family there's always unconditional love, but there's not unconditional like. Right?
Oh, I don't believe that there's as much unconditional. Unconditional love tapers off the older you get. The more responsibility you have, and the more responsibility you have for yourself. And the true unconditional love you probably get in the first 2 or 3 years of life. That's it. Now, if you expect that same level throughout your life, you're barking up the wrong tree, because it's not going to be there. The world's not going to treat you like that. And even those people who started off and gave you that, you keep going back to them. And if they keep enabling you and bailing you out of your own crap that you've created, they're not doing you a favor. They're under the guise of unconditional love, they're supporting your dysfunction. And they've got to be straight with you. They've got to tell you what they see, and they've got to give you some notion of how to make it better and different.
Right.
And
what are the options? Where's the change? Where's the change taking place? And I've talked to people who have come in their 30s, 40s, even 50s, who were victims of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, whatever it might be, mental, emotional abuse, which is just as bad. And, from a relative, an uncle, an aunt, a parent, whatever. And, it's like, well, what does that make you feel like now? Well, it's really hard on the holidays, and it's really hard when I have to go places with them. Well, why? Just curious, why do you need to go places with them? Well, because it's Uncle Charlie.
Right, because they expect
family says you have to be there, and it's like, what? See,
Yeah.
and that's a society. To me, that's a society-based thing that you say family is this.
But how many of those people have not created or gathered a group of people that can be that
Family for them.
DNA family?
It depends on how strongly, and I've talked about this in the year before too, and you kind of brought it up a little bit without maybe even realize you brought it up, is that when we get to root cause, 99% of the time it will be something that happened in childhood before they were 9. Like it's the decision that was made the way that they saw it. So if you were trained, if you were trained with family business stays in the 4 walls.
Oh,
and that was embedded in you very young, and you were even punished for that. Then you don't necessarily feel free as an adult to go out and build that family that's around you. And I think that's where people come, and they need the freedom to say, but it is okay if you have people who love you that aren't your DNA. It is okay.
So
to
much
have
of
that.
those people in those kind of families guilt the hell out of you.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you went to see so and so. How come you didn't come see us?
Right, because we don't want our business
every time
spread.
I leave after I see you, I feel like crap. And so, but
right.
I have this obligation to come see you and feel like crap when I leave and, regress.
And how often have you heard in the years, because I've heard this a lot, when somebody does decide that they're done and they're breaking that family cycle for themselves, the family goes on attack.
Oh, yes.
Attack
What
mode.
is wrong with you? What
we don't want our business spread. And my view of it, and of course share yours, but my view of it is because you change the mirror for them. Because when you change, it's kind of like when you talk to people who are in recovery and they say, well, every friend who I had won't have anything to do with me. Well, right, you're a new mirror now.
Yeah, because none of them are in recovery.
Right. So as you're now sober, and it's not validating that they're okay, because they know there's something wrong. Yeah. Those people know there's something wrong, but when you're a part of that with them, cool, I don't have to look at it any different. This person's rocking it with me. So when somebody actually changes, you've changed the reflection of what they're seeing, and they're going to bolt. Unless they're ready, and then they say, hey, how do I get there too? That's going to be the rare case. But if they're ready, they'll say, how do I get there too? But it's no different with mental health and toxicity and self-reflection and change that way, to where the rest of the family who's still in a toxic mode says, oh no, we're going to beat them down. They need to come back to where we're comfortable, because if they don't respond how the family unit has always responded, then we're going to see our own bullshit, and they're not going to be part of our excuse why we're this way. We have to keep them as our ally to be the reason that we're behaving the way we're behaving. If somebody gets out, then that means there's possibility to get out. Yeah. And I don't want to know there's possibility to get out, because if I know there's possibility to get out, then I'm responsible for taking care of my own garbage.
Well, and they're liable to start pressuring me to change.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
Right. I don't want to do the work.
Wrong with me.
Right. Yeah. And as long as they're wrong, then I could be wrong with them. And it's really no different. The toxic family to me is no different than truly trying to leave the toxic family, in my opinion, is no different than the addict who does stop and how the people around respond. Right. Because it's like, oh, no, that's going to make me see my own crap. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to make sure that they come back.
Well, and the person who comes into therapy and immediately hears about how sick they are or how many problems they have, rather than looking at who are you as a person, what do you have going for you, what is it that you can build from, rather than, well, you got to stop that, and you got to stop that, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and I don't know how to do it. Let's build some skills. Right. You can't take something away from somebody that they're relying on and feel like that's the only way I know how to replace it with something. Right. Ease into it. Develop some skills and say, hey, try looking at it this way. When it works, it's like, geez, I did that and it worked great. That's one of the things about like group therapy can be very powerful, because there's opportunity to do that right in the group. And
with people who they realize that people are living through it too. I had a guest last week who was a woman who runs an organization called Love Another Way. And She deals with the parents, with the moms mostly, of addicted children. And part of her thing is that when she started doing that, she went to codependency counseling. And at first she had an attitude problem about it. I don't have this problem. And then when she heard other people and she could relate to other people who weren't judging her, but were hearing her, and she could get ideas from people living it, not somebody who's telling her what to do, she found great benefit in group. And that can be group with the right guidance, with the right person guiding the group. Because if the right person isn't guiding the groups, what you get is wine session.
Yeah, everybody just sits and commiserates.
Let's support your victimhood, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we'll victim with you. Let's have coffee while we victim together, versus, support back and forth and bouncing ideas off of each other that are just that. They're ideas. Hey, this worked for me. I had that, and it's people who are really living it. And that's what she finds is really beneficial. If she found it beneficial for her, and that's how she runs her organization.
What frightens me most about the field of mental health right now is that it seems as though we are focused based, and it's kind of cookbook. You have this diagnosis, and this is what we do with those kind of people. And that the value and the importance of the relationship between you and this therapist, that I've had more graduate students, people finishing up their education for their doctorates or master's degree, but more typically doctorates, will say, Doc, you taught me something that I had not been taught all along, and I'm in the final stages of my training, and I'm first now hearing this.
Right.
We need to hear this earlier. I have no power unless you give me that power, and you're not going to give me that power to help you until you start trusting me.
Right.
And I become a real person, not a piece of paper hanging on the wall that says I know everything. I don't know everything, and I'll be the first to tell you that.
Good morning, Denise.
We'll struggle with this together, and we'll do the best we can. And if it works better for you, keep it and use it. And if it doesn't, bring it back to me, and we'll figure something out. Something else.
Every therapist isn't for every person.
No.
And doesn't mean that a therapist is good or bad, but there is a rapport, there's a dynamic, there's an energy, there's a flow. And so if you go to see a therapist and that didn't happen, don't assume it won't happen. That just might not be the therapist for you.
Don't go looking for that in the wrong place. Psychiatrists will tell you straight up, I prescribe medication.
Right.
That's what I do. If you're coming for warm fuzzies and a long conversation, you'll get that maybe in a diagnostic session. But all they're trying to figure out is what it is that I should prescribe for you.
And many GPs are now deciding that they can give out these meds, which is
absolutely
the theory behind. I see very over medicated situations, and part of my thing, I tell people think I'm anti-medication because of how I'm like, that is not true at all. My struggle with it is that the medication is used as the answer, and to me, the medication is to help you focus and to help take the edge off while you solve the issue, while you deal with the issue. It is not, I refer to it as McDonald's society. I want it fast, I want it now, and I don't care if it's good for me.
Yeah.
You're still going to have the problem. So when people say, well, you're going to be on this for life, well, you sure the hell are if you don't solve the problem that made you need the medication in the first place. The medication is meant to help you, guide you, and help you cope while you're dealing with these things. But to not mix the therapy with the medication, you're it's a Band-Aid.
Well, and people have this attitude of, well, I can't afford to do that. Or the fact of the matter is that you can't afford not to do that because you're only doing half the surgery.
Right.
How good's that going to work?
Right. Well, and expense, and I've had that conversation on the show too. It has gotten to the point where there are many people who can't afford what they went to, and the places that they can go to that they can afford are so backed up. You're waiting months to get in. So then they give up. By then the medicine's also kicked in. So they're starting to feel a little bit better, and they decide, what? I don't need it. And they don't understand it's a balancing act, and it's both things that make that balance, not one.
I was involved in a research program at Rush Medical Center. And we were finding that about 60% of the people who thought they never had any kind of mental health issue or any kind of problem had in fact suffered at least one episode of clinical depression. Most of them came out of it themselves. But when this keeps happening over and over again, when I keep finding myself getting a head of steam up and everything's and then you kind of collapse again, and it's like, here I am again. You need to do something different. You need to go ask for that help. And a lot of the research very consistently says medication works, talk therapy works, but together they work better than either one
Exactly,
alone.
because it's the balance. Absolutely. And my thing that I argue with people with is that, including psychologists, myself, whoever, but I don't think that there's a person on the planet who hasn't had a mental health crisis at least once in their life.
Maybe they didn't know it.
Right.
They didn't want
Right,
to
but it
label
really
it as
happened.
such,
So
but it
the
happened.
superior who
Yes.
judged that,
Yeah.
it's my argument, as you know, with addiction as well, is that society decided addiction is drugs or alcohol, when in fact somebody who's at the gym and appears to be incredibly fit can be an addict. They're addicted to the gym, and the gym is their outlet. Food, I always talk about, if I'm real upset, you might find me in the pie section. This is where we're gonna head. Or sex, reading, books, shopping, whatever it is, and they're all addictions,
Anything
but it's
that
all a
makes them
soother.
Feel better.
It's all a soother. So when I see people judge because society deemed drugs and alcohol were the bad thing, I think, okay, well, I love to get like, really? How do you feel about that? And then I start digging. Oh, what would happen if you didn't do that anymore? When they choose their thing they think is righteous.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what would happen? Let's not do that anymore. Why don't you try something different? Well, I could never. I'd go crazy. Oh, you would? Isn't that the definition of addiction? How about that? How'd that work for you?
This thing.
That's where the
I'm not
NLP
choosing
practitioner
it. I
comes
need
in
it.
handy, like going, let's discover this a different way. Let's have you discover this on your own, and kind of putting people in the corner. But it's not to make them feel bad. It's really to make them go, oh.
But on the other hand, most people feel better when they just get started in therapy. Then you get through those periods where I've had people say to me, Doc, you must be sick and tired of me talking about the same thing. And I say, no, this is part of this process. When you're done talking about it, you're going to move forward. But
how many people do you find
there,
quit therapy as soon as it gets deep? Because in the beginning, it's the superficial things. You know what I mean? It's the things that you react to every day.
Right.
And then when you start to dig and you start to get deeper and they go, oh, I don't want to touch that. Then all of a sudden they disappear. Therapy didn't help.
And I will tell people, the day you really, really don't want to come here
is the best day to come.
The day you bet you need to be here, and you need to let me know you didn't want to come here.
Right.
And we're going to figure out why that was, because we're on to something important.
Right. That's something coming up that's scary and uncomfortable.
So we live in a world and a society where we're all broken. I think that's in the name of the intro of the show, right? We are told, oh, you need to share your feelings. Let them know how you're feeling. Share your feelings. Don't bottle it. Don't push it down. That doesn't necessarily work either. Just coming up to you and saying, Lisa, I really appreciate you, but you said that my hair looked bad today with my shoes, and that really offended me. And Lisa's like, you're an idiot, right? Right? And Lisa walks away. So sharing doesn't always.
I would say that don't wear your hair with your shoes that way.
Yeah, right. Right. You understand what I'm saying? Sharing doesn't always help, right? Yeah. For that release.
No, it's a start, but it's not the end of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people fear that piece of it, because they say, well, I don't want to get all upset. I don't want to walk out of there feeling worse. But if you've got to do that to feel better in the long run, you got to look at the bigger picture. And in order to do that, you got to have a smiling face sitting across the room from you that says, we're going to do this together, and we're going to get you through this. And you become a meaningful resource to that person, rather than somebody that's going to beat you up every time you walk in their door.
Yeah.
And that's what people fear about therapy. And when they find otherwise, they're like, I do feel better, and thank you. And, I was about to say, I probably had it over the 40 years that I've been doing this, probably about a 95% return rate. It is very, very rare that somebody didn't come back for the next session. And sometimes when they didn't come back, I knew why they didn't come back, because I screwed up. I did something that, in retrospect, is that possible? Hell yeah. But the people that are doing that over and over and over again and don't recognize that people don't come back. You know, you don't go out and advertise more. You fix how it is that
You're
you're
dealing
doing
with
your
what you
work.
got, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, people in your profession, you are loaded with a lot of yuck. What do you do to protect your own sanity and your own mental health?
You talk to people who know what it's like being in these trenches. You walk away from, if you can't not process your therapy sessions for the 8 hours that you're out of the office, you got a problem and you need to go get yourself some help. It's hard to find those experienced people when you get, when you've been at this as long as I have, but they're out there. And when you find them and you start talking about it, you realize that you probably should have been doing this 5 years earlier.
Sure.
It's part of your responsibility, and part of professional ethics is that you take care of you. And if you think that you don't have any of those needs, then you need to see somebody to convince you of the fact that you do, because we all do.
See, that's what I was going to say. To
costs
me, it's
us
all about
something.
self-reflection. What about this did I absorb? Why am I holding on to it? Because if we don't have something icky and sticky in us that stuck to, it wouldn't. So to me, it's about self-reflection. And I'll be honest, I've had clients that are psychologists and counselors, and I've asked them, what made you come to me? And their truthful answer was they didn't want to go out in their own profession and be judged for how they were feeling about their own profession.
Interesting.
So funny enough, my lack of degree helped me in that aspect, because they went, well, you understand enough to hear me and get what I'm talking about, but I'm not educated, so to speak, enough to judge how you're doing it. So they found that balance there, because sometimes it's just a matter of talking about it and getting it out of your system. And maybe you don't want to come home and dump it on family. You know what I mean? You don't want to come home and dump these things on family. So sometimes you just need an escape, whether it be a friend, a spouse, a counselor, or whatever it is. But the truth of the matter in my experience has been, if you don't have something icky and sticky, it wouldn't stick to you. So something about that is making you absorb it. Are you a people pleaser? Are you an enabler? Are you trying to fix something from your own childhood? What about this person resonates with you that all of a sudden you feel obligated to fix them or to carry their burden or whatever? And
and if you're not looking inside to find out what that is, you're not doing your job.
Right.
And you can't take care of other people that to help them do that job.
And when you become emotionally attached, then you're done. Then you're done.
You're done.
And it's not that you don't care. By saying emotionally attached, I don't mean you can't care. I mean, but when you don't take away that emotional attachment, then you also can't see it clearly anymore, because the emotions will cloud.
There's probably two typical views in the media of psychologists: pompous asses or bumbling idiots.
Yeah.
Those are the two extremes. And if that's what you keep seeing on television or in the movies, that you're going to walk in and spend X number of dollars and go through the whole thing of setting this up and find that idiot sitting across the room from you. Why take that chance? And yet, when you get desperate, you do it. And when you find somebody that actually helped you feel a little better, and that you're going to get through this with some help, it changes your perception.
It's hard enough for somebody
world.
to decide that this is, to even consider
Going.
exposing that part that they've been hiding for so long, for whatever reason. Everybody's got their own filter. So for whatever reason, it's hard enough for somebody to decide they're going to go expose that. Then on top of it, expose it to a stranger.
Right.
And then on top of that, expose it to a stranger that might be an idiot. And then not only did you put yourself through the anxiety, because it's a true anxiety people have about it.
Oh, yeah.
Not only did you put yourself through the anxiety, but it ended up being pointless. And you don't want to do it again, because what if the next guy does it? You know what I mean? So it's a struggle for people to even go talk.
And you start expecting that the next guy is going to be just as bad as the last one.
So in America, I can speak. I haven't been outside of America, so I got to speak for most Americans because I have the right to do that.
You're the microphone.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
I own the station.
I don't seek help until something is extremely. I don't go to the auto mechanic until something is rattling. I don't go to the doctor until I can't get out of bed. And I'm not going to go see a therapist because you charge $175 an hour. So we've put a price. We look at everything monetarily,
Value.
right?
Yep.
How do you help people get around that? Don't worry about the price. Let's help fix the issue.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
That's a
I
very
tell you,
good
I
question.
speak for most Americans.
Yeah. You talking to people who have had good experience with therapy is probably the most valuable. When somebody gets referred by someone who was helped by you, they're already coming in with a different attitude. People don't talk about therapy.
No, right.
They hide the fact that they've been there, and I encourage people to share with their families, and to suggest it, because coming from a family member or a friend is way more valuable than coming from a. I worked with a surgeon that was. If you cried in his office, the next office you were in was mine. You know, it was because he didn't deal with that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of the private, the practitioners, but they see the value in medicine, but they don't know us. And we have not done a really good job teaching them what we can do and what it is that it's unethical to get people that have been helped by you to give testimonials.
Yeah.
I was just going to
Can't
say
do
that. I
that.
mean, for me, because insurance doesn't take what I do. And so I rely on referral, really. I mean, because I advertise, but then I go so far. And I tell people, if you feel comfortable, please leave. They're Google reviews, but you know what I mean, on your page where they leave a review. And I have very few. And it's not that people don't like it. It's that, oh my God, my name would be out
They're
there.
going to
I
have
went
to
and
say
saw
they were
you.
there. Yeah.
Oh, we're down to 5. So we're down to 5 minutes.
Now, wait, hold on.
Go ahead.
There's another one that came in.
Okay.
Is everywhere you look now on television and whatnot are advertisements or marketing for major drugs, you know, like I'm a mess again, you know, and it's going to give me diarrhea, nausea, dry mouth.
Right. I'm going to suffer in every other way, but I won't be depressed.
Extreme body odor. And so a lot of people are afraid perhaps they don't understand the difference in what you do and who prescribes it. But, you know, they're afraid that if I open up, next thing I'm going to be on some sort of drug that I can't sleep. I'm going to have cold sweats. My mouth will be dry. I fart in public, all that.
I don't believe in anybody getting prescribed. If they have a severe long-term struggle with it, anybody being prescribed anything that isn't from a psychiatrist. And it's the reason that is somebody who specializes in just that brain chemistry. I worked with a boy, and I'll let Kate finish out the show, but I worked with a young man, and I called Kay about it because I do call somebody out when I'm outside spectrum. I know I'm outside spectrum. And he was on like 6 different medications. They were just stacking up. There was a girl in my office that I called you in actually to the physical office that day too.
Yes.
And you know, who's giving these meds? Well, the GP. No. No, because what was happening is they were just stacking on new ones when it didn't work. Well, sure. I gave it 2 or 3 weeks and I stack on a new one, and you're frying out these synopsises and you're making these things go crazy up there. So to me, if you feel something is going to be long-term, you go to the psychiatrist. Why? He's not going to evaluate. Your psychiatrist is not going to be your therapist, but he knows the chemistry of your brain and he can relate that to what you're feeling, and he can regulate those medications safely to where the GPs, they're just not trained in that.
And the sad part about it is that there is so little collaboration
between the two.
You never get a phone call from a GP's office or from even a psychiatrist's office about, we've got somebody that we're referring to you for talk therapy. They're just kind of cruising and they're doing their thing. And ideally, these organizations ought to exist where that's all in one place and collaboration is expected and demanded, that everybody knows what's going on with this person.
And has respect for the other, not the ego.
That's right. And not me saying, well, he's not doing it right, or I can do better. We can all add something. And if that patient walks out of there feeling even better taken care of and supported by all of then we've done our job. But
he's giving me the 2, which means we have 2 minutes left. So I'm going to let you close out the show with the question of, If somebody is listening right now that's struggling and doesn't know where to go or what to do, what is your piece of advice or seed planting for them to start to consider?
People don't never think they're going to need a hotline. They should have that information. They should know how to get in touch with somebody. If you're not feeling that you can do that, talk to a trusted friend, talk to somebody that you respect, somebody that's been there for you in the past. Don't not ask for help. The people that I have seen that become and act upon suicidal ideation are people that get to a place and probably got there over a slow crawl in that direction to where they are saying to themselves, I can't stand this for another minute. I would rather be dead than to continue. I've known people that have had migraines like that. It's no different than a migraine or any other kind of problem when you are so depressed that you cannot even fathom enduring another minute, another hour. It was like an eternity. I need some relief, and being able to say, I'm going to see somebody and they're going to help me.
I call it the tipping of the scales when you decide that it's less scary to do the unknown than it is to think about remaining feeling like this the rest of your life. And the scales start to tip.
But imagine yourself being in a situation where you're feeling that bad that you don't want to live another minute in that state. And you got no damn clue what you're going to do to make it better. And just talking to somebody who says, okay, I've been through this before with people. This is what we're going to do. Come on in. We're going to, and the sooner the better. And, these waiting lists are horrendous.
Absolutely.
But at least the hotline where you are talking to somebody that's been trained, that has talked to people before in this state of mind, and that person feels already being taken care of and understood. And they say, okay, I think I can make it till my appointment.
Well, then he's telling me we're out of time, but then I'm trying to get NAMI to come on and talk. So
NAMI,
we'll talk about them. And maybe when they come on, you can even come with. We'll see how that goes. I'm assuming we're out of time based on the
it ended an hour ago.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Stick around for Fellowship of Faith's worship hour right now, and also come back at 11:30 for Metaphysical Meanderings.
He'll tell us.